Okay, it's story time, and today I'm going to tell you a story about how I became so involved with the later development of Battlefield Hardline. So, once upon a time, it was April 2014, and I was sitting at my desk making a Battlefield 4 video, as you do on the Battlefield channel, when I received an email that was presenting me the opportunity to fly out to San Francisco, USA, and meet the developers of a brand new Battlefield game. Now inside, a fireworks display just went off inside my chest and I got really excited. It was a fantastic opportunity for myself and my channel. But when I read into the email a little bit more, I started to understand a little bit as to why they wanted me to come out. The event was titled Game Changers, and in the months following my acceptance of that invitation, that's exactly what I became. Game Changers gave community members, press, various YouTube creators and a lot of other people as well the chance to help Visceral Games work on fine-tuning the next Battlefield title. And you have to remember that Visceral have never made a Battlefield title before, so they turned to the community for help, which I think was a really admirable thing to do. So, on arriving in San Francisco, the first event was in May 2014, the next day we were taken to the EA HQ and sat down with Steve Papoutsis, who's the general manager of Visceral Games, Carl Magnus, who's the general manager of DICE, and Thad Sasser and Ian Millam, who are the lead multiplayer designers for Hardline and the creative director for Hardline. They explained that they wanted to show us what they'd done so far, with the hope that we could make suggestions and create ideas that they could implement into the game. Now bear in mind, we couldn't just outright change the total direction of the game. It had been in development for 2.5 years by that point. But smaller things like player models, gunplay, nade spam, balance issues, etc. were some of the things that we could suggest to developers that they could try out with these different ways of thinking. What they were essentially asking us to do is give us our honest opinion of what they'd done so far and whether we thought that their direction was the right direction to go in. Now since that first event, I've had the opportunity to go back 2 more times to the development studio, and both of those times, all the people that attended got the opportunity to record the gameplay that they were playing, bring it back, and pretty much do whatever they liked with it, whether it was editorial on a news website, or whether it was the form of a YouTube video. They could then tell people about their experiences with the game. And I have to say that during those play sessions, there were about roughly 30 people in that room. And they were all hauled up. It was really hot, really stuffy. Don't forget there's 30 PCs in there, all with like graphics cards that are just pumping heat out of the back. And the room was then full of EA representatives and developers. I mean, we were sitting down, and then the floor space was then just taken up by people's feet who were standing there watching us play. And I think that must have been the first time they'd had an outside group of people come and play test their game. And the amount of people that were there was quite staggering because they weren't there to keep an eye on us. It's not like we were sort of untrustworthy. We weren't going to leak anything. The leak actually happened from something else completely. What they were there to do was to actually listen to us. And that sort of staggered me a little bit because I don't think I've ever seen a situation like that before where the playtest was so focused on the people that were playing. There were literally people standing next to me listening to what I was saying as I was playing, whether it was a complaint about something, whether it was praise about something. They were there listening to me and taking down what I had to say. I mean, how often do you see like the bigwigs getting involved with getting their hands dirty in any corporation? When do you see the leader doing all of that nitty-gritty work? Hardly ever. In this room though, it was completely full of all the people I mentioned before. So Thad Sasser was there, Ian Millam was there, Steve Papoutsis was there. All the developers working on multiplayer and single player, most of them dropped in during the day to watch us playing this game. They were there with iPads, tablets, notepads, just furiously scribbling away anything that we happened to mention. Like I said, whether it be like a flashbang on the screen that was taking too long to go away, or whether it was a weapon that wasn't quite functioning the way they'd intended it to function. These guys really cared. And it was that point that it hit me. I'm not just here on some other content capture event. I'm actually contributing to the development of this game. And that was the whole idea behind Game Changers. So after that initial first event where we got to go and give our feedback, we didn't get to take anything away, we were just there to give our feedback. they invited us back again just a month later, so 30 days later, we were carted all the way back over to San Francisco once again to try and capture content of what that would be the first beta build of the game. And they changed loads. And don't forget, they only had 30 days to change these things. They changed loads. The gunplay felt massively tighter, which was a huge thing for us considering how unpredictable Battlefield 4 was at that time. And this was before the full patch and the removal of visual recoil, so we noticed a difference even with visual recoil still being in Hardline at that point. We noticed that the gunplay seemed to be much tighter than Battlefield 4's. We came home having given more feedback and an embargo date, which turned out to be the same day that the beta dropped for the general public. Now, when the beta first dropped, there was a lot of resistance to the title. The way the battle had shifted from like all-out military war to the war on crime was probably the standout complaint, and I'd argue for a small section of the Battlefield community at least, they still feel that way, and that's just something they will always think and they will always deal with, and that's great. If you want to think that, then that's fine, but that is the way that Visceral chose to go with it. And I mean, I wasn't really bothered, and I'm still not bothered about that now, to be perfectly honest. What I was really bothered about is finding out how other people felt the game played, because BF4 was a disaster. It was fundamentally flawed and it just didn't work properly on release, and that hurt a lot of people quite badly, and they're still feeling that now, to be honest. And if there was one thing we didn't have to tell the developers when we were out there, is that the game had to work on release day. If it didn't, they risked alienating an even more pissed off community, and it's likely the guys wouldn't have come back for a little while. They would have needed to have seen a complete revamp of the series or something like that, a drastic change or in a way they were developing the title. And looking at what they're doing with Hardline, I'd argue they're already doing that to try and help make up for Battlefield 4. So after that beta, Visceral delayed the game. Main reason? To work on the feedback they were given and try to fine-tune the game further. This gave us, the game changers, even more information to work with. So Visceral went away, implemented a load of changes, and then invited us back out to San Francisco yet again to test the game even further. I mean, it's just staggering. I've never been on a plane so much in my life, and in just 3 months I travelled over 20,000 miles backwards and forwards to San Francisco. And for me, that's absolutely awesome. I'm going halfway across the world to play a game. That's like, people on YouTube and people playing games, that's something that you dream of, and that's fantastic that I'm getting to do that, and I feel really privileged. But it also triggered something else to me, that they're not just doing this so that I can capture content. I'm sitting there for 4 and 5 hours at a time talking my way through all these problems and issues about Hardline, so the developers can actually put that into the game. There's no way that EA would fund all of those trips, all the hotels and food and everything that was paid for me to go out there. There is no way they would fund that unless they weren't 100% serious about the title. No way. They weren't about to fuck this one up. And now, here we are in mid-January, just before the supposed next beta, which is supposed to be coming out late January, early February sometime, no confirmed date yet, with 7 months extra development time in tow. And for me, having seen the game go from pre-alpha all the way through to its near release form, I couldn't be more happy with the work the developers have put in. I'd still argue that the hard work, the real hard work, was done by the developers, and by no means am I trying to take away what they've done with the game. They made the game, that's their thing. I was just there to provide feedback, but even in doing that, in seeing that feedback being implemented into the game, that's a massive thing for me, and I feel really proud that I was able to give that feedback. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed my little story. I know it got a little bit in-depth in there, but if you enjoyed the video today, I'd really appreciate it if you gave me a thumbs up and leave any questions you might have in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer any of the ones that I can. If I can't answer it, I'll tell you I can't answer it, but if you want to know anything about me going there or anything like that, then I'm more than happy to take any questions you might have. But anyway, thanks very much for watching. My name is Westy, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.